Hello and welcome to the crux of medtech. We go beyond the buzzwords, bringing you the insights from the innovators, investors, and leaders who are driving this life-saving space forward. Because I'm absolutely fascinated by the stories that people have to tell in medtech. As someone who works in this sector on a daily basis, I come across so many interesting people and so many interesting stories that I think the world deserves to know about. Welcome to the crux of medtech.
So first of all, Gautam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Henry. It's my pleasure.
So we'd like to kick off and just learn a little bit about your background. So tell us where you grew up and what did you do for education?
So I am from India, Delhi. I did undergrad in economics and business, and then straight after that I went for my MBA. Post that I joined equity research with JP Morgan in Mumbai. I did that couple of years. So that was my sort of education and the initial sort of experience working for a corporate.
Nice. What did you do for JP Morgan? What kind of sectors and projects?
So I was part of their Asia banking team in equity research. And so I was part of basically we used to write initiation reports, supporting an analyst on sort of writing equity research reports, stock coverage reports, giving price targets and so on, and primarily doing modeling and stuff. So that was, I think, a very interesting time in the sense to learn how to work on sophisticated sort of platforms like Bloomberg or Reuters, and then sort of compile information, work on Excel sheets and models. And these are models that run into multiple sheets, data points, so doing that analysis. So it was fun sort of building up from there.
Yeah, nice. Very analytical. So once you've gone through JP Morgan, where did you go from there?
So I did equity research for a couple of years for the banking sector. And then I was sort of getting, you call it, bored, and I wanted to do something more on the private side. And that's when I joined EY in transaction advisory services. This was, again, long back. So I joined them in 2005. I was there with them until 2007. During that course of 2 years, I worked on over 19 transactions. I was part of the group. We used to write valuation reports signed by a Ernst & Young partner, and we would issue those reports to some like high courts or mergers, amalgamation that used to happen for the company. So that had a statutory sort of standing as well. So that was output, and the input that went into that was a lot of analysis, quality checks, rigor, going through a lot of screening. So it was honestly an amazing experience. And another part of that experience, interesting part, was I happened to work across different sectors. So that gave me sort of working on, say, automotive sector, manufacturing, technological, including one of the biggest paint companies, like the two paint companies merging together. Mm-hmm. So their merger was happening. So we determined the swap ratio for the company. So those sort of things, it was fun. Like, it was real fun.
Very nice. And so is that when you got into the kind of world of transactions and then these big deals sort of thing? So that was more on the sell side, so to say, because we used to do it as not on the buy side, but on the sell side more and as an advisory sort of a stuff or a mandate. So that's how I sort of got into it. Yeah, sure. The private M&A. Yeah. And how did you find yourself in the world of medical tech and also VC?
I joined a private equity fund immediately after EY. I joined a private equity fund in India. And that's when my journey of, you call it, working on the buy side on private equity venture capital started. So that's almost now 17 years. Initial 8 years of that 17 years, 7 years thereabouts, I was doing more on the financial services, asset management sort of transactions. And then I joined TCP in 2017, at the start of 2017. And that's when my journey with medtech sort of investing started. Yeah.
Okay, great. So what was it like to transition from lots of different industries and coming over to the medical technology world?
So one of the things which was very interesting was that my previous experience was in financial services, a lot of it, including with JP Morgan and then there subsequently as well. Financial services and medtech are both highly regulated sort of sectors. They're growing at an exciting growth rate. So as in expanding very sort of strategically or at high growth rate. So effectively, I think I had those sort of, you call it, experiences to draw from, how to work with the regulators, how to sort of work as per the regulatory guidelines. And then basically, sometimes your growth can be limited because of that, but that's part and parcel of the industry, like unlike our technology or some of the other industries which are not highly regulated. So I think it was an interesting experience to sort of drawing upon the previous financial services experience to the medtech space.
Okay, understood. So now we've got a bit about your background, how you found yourself in the medtech space, but TCP is a fund basically. So can you talk a little bit more about the fund strategy and how it's made up really?
So TCP, or the Capital Partnership, we've been based out of London for the last 27 years. More like an asset management platform. At the group level, we manage $7 billion of assets, of which more than $6 billion is within the venture space. We also operate as Northgate Capital, a brand name or you call it a sister company that we acquired in 2016, and we are 100% shareholders of that venture capital firm based out of the Bay Area, Northgate. So Northgate does technology and venture investments. They do both fund investments as well as direct investments. And TCP as a group has also been actively sort of doing venture investing for 20 plus years now. Historically, we've done hedge funds investing as well as real estate investments as well. Hedge funds, we sort of slightly exited over the last few years. And real estate is something which sort of we still tend to focus, but that's more focused on the European sort of markets. Whereas venture capital investments for us are primarily based, is the US market. Yeah, that's the focus area for us.
Understood. So talk to me about the fund makeup for more the medtech side of this.
Okay, so on the medtech side, we started doing medtech investing 9 years ago, and almost that was the time when I joined the group. So we how we see it basically. So we, as I told you, we have experience within the technology investments for 20 plus years. MedTech as a strategy of that largest sort of technology investments, which indirectly we had been doing, but we formalized a separate sort of a team or a separate fund strategy for that due to few reasons. One of the reasons was that within technology space, you typically find sectors become monopolies, like you only have one Netflix, one Uber, and so on. With the beauty about medtech space is, even if you're the third or the fourth player, you still end up making money. And the best example of that is you look at COVID vaccines. So like Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Moderna, each of them made money. The important point is for you to have a regulatory approval and the right clinically proven product, and then of course commercialize it. So that's how we see this from a larger perspective, like as part of our larger strategy of technology investments. And we started having a separate team, a separate fund, or rather category of funds within the medtech space. So that's how the idea came of doing a separate sub-segment of the larger strategy. So come forward to today, from 2017 to now, we are currently investing from our third fund, and we've sort of deployed north of $220 million of capital in this space. We have a portfolio of around 15 companies, of which we've exited 3. We actively manage 12 companies currently. Yeah.
Okay, understood. And you have some areas of medtech that you prefer over others, and the strategy is almost quite unique for you guys. So why don't you just go a little bit deeper on the kinds of companies you invest in and also what the strategy is behind them?
So I think, and I'd probably take a sort of more from a broader picture just to sort of relate and sort of explain our strategy. So how we go about sort of selecting companies or basically which segments, and this is again linking to a larger trend. If you look at within the medtech space, and this is true for life sciences as well, larger strategics, you look at Philips, Johnson & Johnson, Boston Scientific, AstraZeneca, you name any one of them. And this is like a trend over the last 30 years. They've sort of not expanded their in-house R&D allocations or investments, but their M&A budgets have shot up like 5 or 6 times, and that's the growth which has happened with their M&A budget. So all of these companies are listed companies. They have stock markets to report to. Their management teams need to deliver on their stock prices on a quarterly basis. So they're probably, I think, they're not so patient. Like in the sense they want more like a ready-made sort of a product which can plug and play into their existing sales and distribution machinery. And that's why we're seeing more and more M&A of FDA approved or CE marked or sort of approved devices or drugs, which are becoming more and more sort of acquisitive for these larger companies. So, and that is one of the reasons why M&A have shot up. Like just to give you an anecdote, if M&A which used to happen like $50 billion 25 years ago, that have shot up to now $600-700 billion per year. So that is the growth which has happened within the medtech or the pharmaceutical space. And what we are trying to do is basically capitalize on that theme as part of our larger strategy. And how we are doing it is effectively, we look at backing clinical stage companies, and basically we look at founders who have worked as R&D engineers, scientists, biomedical engineers in these larger firms, and now they say they don't want to remain as employee, they want to start their own startups, and effectively we're looking for those founders to basically back and support them in sort of launching a next version of an existing device or a product available in the market, and we call it fast follower, and effectively that's how we go about sort of executing our strategy, picking up those founders, and this fast follower concept links to our overall thesis again, is within medtech space. These are oligopolies. Like even if you are the third or the fourth player in the market, so long as you have a better version or a better product available than the existing one, there would be an acquirer for your company. And just to give you an example, with the use of technology, if there is a heart pump, if you can make it smaller, or if you can put a extra pressure sensor or have an AI model attached to that, using the technology, you come up with the next generation, which is way superior than the first one. There will be, if as an example, if Johnson & Johnson is the market leader, there will be a Boston Scientific or an Abbott who will come and acquire. That's our primary belief. And so from that perspective, we are happy to back clinical stage companies. The other fact is that as well, for us, in an ideal case, we wouldn't want to do commercialization as our base case call. And the reason for that is commercialization has a different risk reward ratio. It requires a lot of capital, like hundreds of millions of dollars. And secondly, it requires sales and distribution machinery, which we believe it's highly capital efficient for large strategics to be themselves sort of doing commercialization rather than our startups or younger companies doing the commercialization. So that's why we are happy to take the clinical risk when we are backing a very strong team and we have a conviction on the sector and the device or the technology, and then we are happy for them to basically get the FDA approval, and closer to that stage, we start conversation with the larger strategics for sale process, and that's how we go about it. And to give our credit to our strategy, we've executed 3 sale transactions over the last 9 years to Boston Scientific, to J&J and Abbott. So these are the 3 exits that we've created. So yeah, so that's how we go about sort of selecting companies.
Absolutely. And we're going to dive into those exits in a little bit and kind of dissect them of what made those successful. But a quick question on it. So you guys don't like going to commercialization because of that risk reward profile. Do you ever find that when investors maybe come in at a later stage or the founder changes their mind and they actually want to go commercial, like, do you ever have that situation where the strategy of the company changes, and then how do you guys deal with that and take it on? Yeah, do you get out? What's your play?
So We evaluate all of the situation on a case-to-case basis and evaluate the risk and the reward, and also more from a capital efficiency perspective, like how much accretive will that be to our sort of current investment holding for a particular company. But most of the times we are supportive of the management team. We want to work with other co-investors in those companies as well. And of course, if there is a chance or a scenario where the exit returns can be much better, much bigger, for us to wait or commercialize for a year or two. And that's more like a pilot commercialization, sort of to prove the concept over there. That's how we would go about sort of executing those scenarios. So I think that's how I would put it probably, yes. We are supportive. We remain supportive to our founders for sure, and with other co-investors. And then we are happy to wait if there is a case for us to wait and sort of do a bit of commercialization.
Okay, understood. And are the products that you guys are going after, are they physical products, or is there any software, AI play in it at all for the medtech side?
So that's an interesting question. Actually, what is happening is even we have a lot of devices. These are physical products, but the key differentiator which is happening, and this is becoming more and more sort of prominent over the last few years, especially with the booming scenario, the booming market for AI currently. You need to have an AI sort of a software element as well. And if you can generate data, store data, capture data, and sort of analyze that using your device, your product is more valuable. So I would say probably all of our companies, like hardware device companies, are looking at storing data, capturing data. They have mobile applications, they have AI softwares, imaging softwares attached to their devices and stuff, and storing and analyzing sort of patient data as well. So it's more and more of convergence which is happening, and honestly, I think that's the way it's going to. A standalone hardware company or a standalone software company is probably disadvantaged versus a company which has both hardware and a software element.
Cool. So the reason why I'm asking that is that obviously you've got the medtech side, but you've also got the tech play and joined some pretty strong AI companies, Google, DeepMind, Palantir as well. So like, how far are we behind in terms of medtech? And there's parts regulation, part cultural in my eyes, but how far are we behind considering you can see what's going on over here in the tech side, and how far behind are we in medtech?
They both have different journeys for them to perform, so to say. MedTech, for sure, with the AI boom, it's basically the convergence is happening. And for a standalone digital health or a software company to become highly popular, definitely there will be there are cases for those as well, like the Palantirs or the DeepMinds of the world within the medtech space. For sure, there are those companies, and how we go about doing that is basically, for us, we have as part of our larger fund strategy as well, 80% of our allocation goes to, you call it more on the medtech medical devices front, which of course has a component on the software side, and then the 20% allocation is we reserve for our digital health, sort of those sort of platforms, which are primarily, like, just to give you an example, one of our portfolio companies is developing a platform for delivering autism care, which is traditionally has been done through, like, in real estate occupied centers. Basically, it's more a real estate business, like operating within the centers. But now one of our portfolio companies is digitizing or sort of using technology, providing that platform to therapists to sort of communicate with the family members, or even deliver the therapies to the children via digital media. So that's happening for sure, and we see more and more of that happening in the coming years.
Okay, interesting. So to go back to the winners then, or the ones where you've exited, what goes into those exits? Like, are there key traits that you spotted within all three that kind of run through the three that got an exit, or all situations very different? Like, what were the key success factors? And also, it might be worth just talking through who the companies were and what the exits were for.
Okay, so I think probably I'll take the most recent example. One of our companies called Adona Medical was acquired by Johnson & Johnson. It's a company that we invested from our fund one. We made a very attractive return for investors. We returned capital back to investors with that exit. And of course, that was just one of the 5 investments from our fund one. So from a from a returns perspective, a blockbuster sort of an exit for us. Why it happened so quickly and we were able to execute that exit within say 3.5 years of our holding period, that was more like a 510K sort of a path, regulatory path, imaging device, and it was quick to execute and effectively get the regulatory approval. We were able to prove the patients, collect the clinical data on patients for Adona Medical, and of course we have another strategic, which was shareholder within Adona Medical. Then we ran a process, and then J&J sort of agreed to acquire. So it happened, and I think full credit to the team, the way they executed their clinical program. They were able to sort of turn around things really quick. Initially, they did patient studies outside of the US, and then eventually they were immediately able to sort of roll out studies within the US as well, and that's how they went about executing. So we were aware of this category, that this was an important sort of category to few of the strategics, and this was more like a 3D imaging of the heart, going through a catheter and sort of producing those images on a console. So we were aware that this was an important sort of a asset class or a sector or a product class which was important to strategics, and they just came and acquired. So if we pick up the right category, I think you call it half of the job is done right. And the reason why I say that is we very closely analyze what sectors are important to the large strategics, where are typically the gaps that they see, where are the larger acquisitions which are happening, which categories are growing, say at 30-40% CAGR every year, and where are the gaps. And another factor for us is addressable market should be in billions of dollars. So typically for us, the US is the focus area, and if we see a company which has a TAM or addressable market of say $300 billion versus another company which has a $4 billion of addressable market, we were most likely, among all things being equal, will go for a larger sort of addressable market. And the reason for that is, I think all these strategics are also, they look from that perspective. They look how by onboarding or acquiring a particular product or a device, how much of revenue can they add, say, in the next couple of years. The larger that is, the more attractive it is. So that's how we go about it. That's one of the reasons why, say, of the 15 investment that we've done, almost 7 or 8 investments are in the cardiovascular space. Cardiovascular is the favorite of strategics. Historically, they are the largest M&A sort of acquisitions have happened, and that's why we align our strategy with the sectors that are sort of more relevant to the strategics, and that's how we go about picking those sectors or product classes.
Awesome. And when is the right time to bring strategics into the cap table? Do you bring them in early and have them on the journey with you guys at TCP, or do you want to have them as far away as possible for as long as possible?
So there is no right or wrong approach to doing that. If of course there is a portfolio company that we have, wherein we have 2 strategics or rather 3 strategics which have already participated and are shareholders in. They are on the cap table. So in certain cases, of course, that happens. And in some of the other cases, we try to sort of, where we can manage the FDA approval independent of any other strategic sort of contribution, either from a financial contribution or sometimes using their sort of infrastructure or support on the product side as well. So depending upon those scenarios, we would evaluate those situations, and that's how we would go about choosing. There is no right recipe. It's more like case to case basis, I would say. In many cases, we wait till the last end, like in the sense closer to the FDA, and then we sort of run a formal process and then create an exit. Yeah.
Sure. And how much should startups and founders open up their books to strategics? Because obviously there's competitiveness, there's competitive play, there's IP that could get shared or funneled out. So how much do you open up the books? How much do you give them, but also keep the attraction on their side of getting it in? It's probably a balance, but if you've got any advice, that'd be good.
So I think for us, It's very important to keep educating strategics or from the get-go, as in we keep on sharing our clinical data, because that really is the proof of the pudding. Yeah, if your clinical data is solid, you're going to get the regulatory approval. So for us, as and when we start generating clinical data on patients of our superiority of our devices or our systems or product classes, we start sharing that over podiums. We work with key opinion leaders. We're spreading the word out, and then on a case-to-case basis, we reach out to strategics as well. There have been instances where we are conducting, like as an example, a company based in San Francisco in the US. If we are conducting trials in Brazil, like patient trials in Brazil or the Republic of Georgia in Europe, some of the strategics have flown, their teams have flown with us to see those trials live. So we strongly believe in educating them, and at the same time we safeguard our IP and other confidential informations, executing NDAs with them. So that's pretty standard, more from a legal perspective, I would say. But definitely the focus is on education and sort of creating the buzz around our clinical data from the get-go.
Okay, great.
I'm interrupting this episode to bring you a word from our sponsors, TTP. TTP is a leader in complex medical technology development with deep scientific and engineering expertise. They support ambitious medtech companies in solving high-risk, high-complexity challenges where there's no margin for error. Whether you're tackling uncharted technical territory or racing to bring a product to market, TTP provide clarity and direction. By de-risking innovation and ensuring seamless alignment with regulatory and manufacturing demands, TTP help you move forward with speed and confidence. To find out more, check out the show notes.
Going back to the 3 exits you guys had, are there any commonalities between those companies or traits between the founders or traits between the companies that have led to an exit? What's been the success factors to actually get to an event?
I think one commonality is they've been on the cardiovascular side, and coincidentally, the 3 exits that we had were actually part of the Shifomed platform that we work with them a lot. We respect Amar a lot. He, as you know, he's a serial entrepreneur, so we like him a lot. That has been the commonality, and of course cardiovascular areas, and then more importantly, I think the full credit goes to the team who executed that. So it's just that happened, but there are many other companies that we have in our portfolio companies as an existing portfolio, which are sort of acquisition ready, I would say. And why I say that is based on the clinical data. So hopefully, I think next 12 to 18 months we might have 1 to 2 more exits.
Sure. Do you think we're in a good environment to get acquired at the moment? Is there enough interest? Is there enough capital? Is the exit good enough for you guys? Like, are we in the right environment for exits?
That's a very interesting question that you're asking. Now, I think this year, and especially for last couple of years, have been tough for the M&A market. And the reason why I say that is there have now started, like especially for 2025, some acquisitions are happening, but as I see, it's more and more on the late stage, sort of for mature companies. As an example, Stryker acquired Inari this year. Very recently, Abiomed, another sort of a large heart pump manufacturer, was acquired by Johnson & Johnson. So these are mature companies which have billions of dollars of revenue or hundreds of millions of dollars already, and those have been acquired by the larger strategics. Whereas closer to maybe 4-5 years ago, strategics were more open to acquiring companies which were in early clinical sort of stage or just getting an FDA approval. So I think the bar has increased. Risk appetite for sure has come down this year, and this is across the board. And I'm talking more from the US perspective, with the changes in regulations, with tariffs, with FDA layoffs. There is a lot of uncertainty, which is sort of flooding the market, and not to talk about the geopolitical situation and so on. Of course, higher interest rates have also contributed to that. We're just coming out of a decade of zero interest rate sort of scenario, and all of these acquisitions which were done previously were done on sort of very low cost of capital, and now all of these strategics need to factor in very high sort of cost of capital if they were to go for an acquisition. So multiple factors have played sort of a role, and effectively I would say it's slightly challenging, especially this year. When we had the JP Morgan conference in January of this year, we were anticipating 2025 to be a fabulous year, very positive energy, and I think it's definitely not turned out to be like that.
So do you believe that 2026 is going to be any different? Do you think it's going to be more positive next year?
I believe so, yes. Hope 2026 is much better. And primarily talking about the US market, there is clarity now emerging on the tariff situation, at least, on more on the macroeconomic front as well. Now the outlook is looking, the growth for the US economy growth and the global growth is looking much better for the next 12 to 18 months or 24 months. Geopolitical situation is also turning better, hopefully. Things will stay calmer, more on the geopolitical front, and I sincerely hope stock markets have done very well recently. So I strongly believe that 2026 will be a better year for the markets. Yeah.
Very good. And what about for the private markets and the fundraising environment for founders? So there's kind of we work with a lot of companies. Some companies are going out there, they're pitching, they're going on the roadshow and getting absolutely nothing back. And then some are getting money basically thrown at them. So, I mean, what advice do you have for the founders who, I guess, are really struggling at the moment? Not so much the ones who aren't, but what do you see about the private markets and how is this going to be? Is it going to change at all? What can you give to founders basically?
Okay, so I think the way I would look at it, I will go back to the fundamentals, and by fundamentals I mean clinical plan, your clinical data, your reimbursement plan, your addressable market, how large is that, how much experience does the team have in building this, what they are proposing to build, so team traction, how does the unit economics look like, what is your regulatory plan. And of course, so a combination of all these factors, your clinical, regulatory, commercial, overall market sizing, the strength of the team. So how do you package and sort of create a story around that? So that's how we look at it. We have our own sort of parameters or filters to check through each and every opportunity, and that's how we go about. So I think convincing investors on each of these parameters and giving thoughtful, diligent responses will create credibility, and once you have credibility, then you can convert that into an investment. So I think it's a journey, and again, going back to the basics. So probably that's what I would say, just stick to your basics, and then try to sort of create that credibility. Many a times this credibility may not be converted into an investment, say within 3 months. But it could take a year, it could take 15 months, 18 months, but you keep on sort of showing up, keep on talking about your story, updating them that this is what you plan to do over the next 6 months. And then once you've done that, update them again. So that's how I think you go about building that credibility and relationship. And honestly, I think that's really the key to sort of securing an investment.
So do you think founders should be kind of pitching straight away to investors, or should they be building that relationship first? Should they be sharing news and not actually, because once you're a no, one of the things I've heard is once you're a no in a CRM, you're never going to be a yes at the end of it. So maybe that's not fair, but that's one thing I've heard recently. Do you think you should be approaching investors and building a story over time before you say, now we're looking for investment, or when you need it, should you just be going? What do you think on that point?
Yeah, I think the interesting part is, and which is what honestly we do with a lot of our own founders as well. We make them introduction. We introduce them to other VC funds as well. So the point is, establishing that credibility sort of and building upon that over a period of time, and all at the same time you need to understand what is, say, their investment focus, whether you are a fit for that or whether you're a sort of outside of that fit. And that's how you go about building your relationship, trying to understand. So this interaction should not be just one way, as in you should also be asking sort of intelligent questions, trying to understand what is their investment strategy and effectively what can or what they require you to do. If they say you know, or ask you to come at a later time, then effectively ask them what would it make them or what are their filtering points or what is important to them, and then try to execute them. So keep it like in a very structured sort of thoughtful process, and I would say that's how you go about creating your building your relationship.
There's obviously some good successes in the portfolio. Have you missed any companies, or have you got any misses that you wish you'd got into that you've seen, wow, they've gone on to do amazing things, and yeah, wish you'd have got in at the right time?
Oh, there are so many of them. I wouldn't be talking about any specific cases of those, to be fair. But the key message that I've learned over the years is, in the investment world, it's okay to miss a good investment, but it's a crime to make a bad investment. So honestly, I don't worry about missing a good investment. That's fine. There are so many opportunities which are available in the market, and especially in today's scenario, we get to see a lot of good companies, and when there is a right fit, we are more than happy to sort of go forward. But in a scenario, if you have to miss an investment, that's absolutely fine. That's part and parcel of the business. On an average, we see like maybe 300 transactions every year. On an average, we maybe close 2 to 3. So it's
1%.
You can imagine, yeah, you can imagine the filtering that we end up doing. So it's fine. I think honestly, that's there are no regrets. The more important part is the one that we are doing, the investment that we end up executing, how they fit into our strategy, and how we help them sort of grow and basically take them to the next level. So that's really more important to us. Yeah.
Sure. So absolutely fine. And I know you're a very analytical person, so I'm sure if you had to learn that it's okay to miss good ones, but it's not okay to pick bad ones or pick badly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you a specific example, but do you want to tell me what you learned through potentially picking wrong or making a bad choice?
Oh, that's again very interesting question. I think as I'm seeing more and more, given medtech is a technical field, in many of the situations, I think, and I can now differentiate why some of the companies are more successful than some others, and this is whether within our portfolio or outside world as well. I think the quality of the team and the founders is very critical, honestly, if you ask me, and that's a learning. We still sort of keep on thinking, reflecting more and more on this. Whether founders, we ask them, have they been in a similar situation, whether they've sort of founded companies previously, have they dealt with regulatory situations, clinical situations, or and so on. So if you've done that before, there is a track record, then as investors we get more comfortable, and I can see that differentiation in outperformers of the portfolio, not just for us but externally as well, why some of the companies have done so better than some of the others in the same industry. I think it's to do more with the team. So team who has had that experience before, who probably have seen up cycles or down cycles, who've sort of adapted to regulatory strategies or regulatory changes which have happened, managing a smooth clinical process, and so on, integrating technology within your platform. So whether you've done that before, and if you're doing it again, there is a high confidence that you will be successful.
Sure.
So that's how I think that if I have to pick a factor, that will be the important factor for me, as in the team's experience of doing this in the past.
Got you. Understood. So what are the kind of traits of the best founders? What is it? Characteristics, maybe not what they've done previously, but how do they act? What are their behaviors that they demonstrate?
great founders are very humble, I would say. So effectively, it's pleasant working with them. They're very open to taking sort of feedback and discussing things. So, like in some of the cases, we run board meetings which probably run up to say 4 hours in certain situations as well. And the reason is because we keep on discussing and debating base case scenario, what if, scenario 1, scenario 2, scenarios 3. So exploring all of that in detail. Many founders are sort of open to that. Many of them may not be open. So I think that really is a key differentiator. How much receptive are you to the feedback, and not just from the investors, from the board, but say feedback from your team as well. And that to me is one quality I think is sort of very important for more from a personal sort of trade perspective.
So what are you excited about in terms of technologies or areas of medtech moving forward?
So as I alluded to earlier as well, I think it's more the integration of the hardware and the software using AI models. Those companies are becoming more and more popular, so to say. We are seeing more and more opportunities on that front, and it may be just a catheter based sort of implantable device company, but how they are using AI or capturing data to sort of create that differentiation, that's a trend which I'm seeing is more and more happening in the recent past, and probably will be even more higher in the coming months or quarters or next couple of years. So that integration of hardware and software more on the AI front, I would say.
Okay, and within that, what areas of that is exciting to you? Like any specific applications of that hardware and software? Was it just across the board?
I would say honestly, it could be as simple as a CGM glucose monitoring device. If you're using sort of a hardware component of that, whether you're saving the patient data and sort of analyzing, giving some recommendation, having a mobile application alongside that. So that's the convergence or the integration that I'm talking about. That's one example. Another example is a imaging device company that we have. That's heart imaging, going through the esophagus and sort of creating a heart image. So what we are trying to do is basically integrate a robotic element to that, and at the same time using AI to create or generate images. So that AI model combined with the robotic sort of an arm, and then of course the larger hardware imaging platform, combining the three together, three different sort of products or streams together and packaging them into one platform is an example, another example that I see, and I think more and more of that probably will happen.
Bringing the conversation back to the founder area. So how can companies make themselves, or founders make their company attractive to strategics to eventually be acquired?
The way we look at is, I will call it in sort of tiered basis. The first is a match, or a fit. How does your product or platform fit into their commercial infrastructure? If there is a match, then definitely I think explore that conversation. If there is no match, then do not waste your time with that strategic. In the sense, if they already have a cardiovascular sort of a sales and distribution machinery, and you have a cardiovascular product, then definitely the same team can sell, as a very basic example. Sometimes the sales and distribution team can sort of sell cross-linked products as well, but something which is unrelated and you not using the same sales and distribution sort of channel, then it becomes very difficult. So that's more like a commercial fit. If that is not there, then I would say probably do not focus on those strategics. Now, which strategics do you focus? So of course, you first check is you've done the commercial infrastructure fit match. The second is their product focus or a product sort of a match. Now, within the product focus as well, there is a strategic focus, and then there is an ancillary focus. Whether your product is strategic to them or whether your product is ancillary to them. If you are strategic to them, then explore an M&A or sort of a conversation. If you're not, then in that case, I would say explore an investment from them. So that's how you start your conversation, try to prove them. and then eventually over the years they come on your cap table from their venture arm, they make an investment, and then over the years they integrate with you, they learn you better, see your performance. That could be an opportunity for an M&A. But if you have an ancillary fit, they're not going to explore an M&A, and the right approach in that case will be to sort of explore a small minority investment.
Sure. So should you be building for one or two very specific strategics, or should you be building for the 4 or 5 that might be acquirers?
That again depends on a case-to-case basis. In one of our companies, we were exploring a process. We reached out to 8 strategics because this product class was important to all of the 8 strategics. In some of the other cases, it's probably just 2 strategics. So it depends. I think the question is more how like that strategic fit, so to say.
Okay, understood. But from a perspective of building your company, like your QMS, should you be building it so that it fits with another QMS of an acquirer? Let's just say you have a company you want to get into Abbott and you want to try and build for their QMS and fit into their regulation and their sales teams and channels. Like, are you building it for them as in the company rather than, I guess, just the financial capital vehicle?
So the way we do it is, and that's why we like the Shifamed model a lot as well. Of course, there are other groups like Shifamed in the Bay Area. So we set up a company, and effectively that company houses the team, the management team. The company does clinical sort of program, run the clinical program, execute on that. Then of course they have their own regulatory sort of champions as well, and we set up a mini manufacturing facility within those companies as well. And the reason for that is, when an acquisition hopefully happens, that initial sort of pilot commercialization can happen from the same premises. So we try to sort of, you call it, create more like a plug and play sort of an opportunity, and that's another differentiator that we have versus our competitors, so to say, and in terms of attracting, say, an Abbott or a Boston Scientific, because they get the initial sort of manufacturing and the sales targets can be met from that particular facility. So that's how we go about building our companies, and sort of exploring those. Yeah.
Okay, understood. So to bring it round to the final parts of this conversation, so is there anything you want the audience to know about TCP? Is there anything we haven't covered so far? Anything you want to leave the audience thinking?
I think broadly we've talked about our strategy. We are looking at new opportunities, and I think our website sort of details the segments and the space sectors that we look at. We typically get involved from Series A round. Typically, we do not do seed round investments. Right check sizes of between $5 to $15 million. And once we are in a company, we typically like to lead the follow-on rounds as well. We take board seats as well. So we of the 12 existing investments that we have board positions on 9 of those companies. So that's how we are actively involved in terms of managing and supporting our company. So that, I think, we are looking for more opportunities and happy to sort of engage, explore, and have more conversation with the new founders.
Perfect. Thank you, Gautam. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you. My pleasure, Henry. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Crux of MedTech podcast. If you're not already doing so, please go ahead and subscribe on YouTube or follow the podcast on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. This podcast is proudly brought to you by Crux. Crux is a medtech search firm which places pioneers in transformative roles to help us live longer, healthier lives. We do 3 things for companies. We help hire world-class executive talent. We help companies raise investment from Series A to Series C and execute upon M&A. And we also are building a community of medtech leaders to facilitate peer-to-peer learning and accelerate the companies to help them go faster. If you're interested in any of those 3 things, please reach out to me on LinkedIn or follow the link in the show notes to find out more. Thank you.